This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Welcome to Body Count, a history podcast.
Hello and welcome to Body Count, the podcast where we believe history doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes.
It rhymes.
I'm a proud member of the Big Heads Podcast Network. We're here to show you you don't hate history, you just hate the way that it was taught to you. Now, the only rule when we choose a topic, someone, or a lot of someone's, as is usually the case, died. We give you...
Dun, dun.
You know, it is what it is. We give you the series of events in a narrative fashion. And by the end, correlate said story with current events. Now, I am not PBS, Ken Burns, or Dan Carlin. If you want to Hoover-esque just the facts, ma'am, history podcast, we're not going to be for you. There will be analysis, opinions, discussion, and this is not a lecture form. My opinions are my own. No, I hold my co-host verbally hostage. Direct your hate at me where it belongs. Now, it's said, tragedy plus time equals comedy. So know that we do giggle at some occasionally rough subject matter. We are not actively trying to offend anyone, I assure you, but you've been duly warned. If you are okay with all of those things, I am your host, Jessica Manor, and I am joined today by my co-host,
Bethany Skelton. And you know, it still giggles. It still makes me giggle when you said you're going to hold me hostage, because there are times where like, no, I want to know more. Tell me more.
I know
demand
that.
Of it.
And you know what?
God.
Also, our guests have held me verbally hostage. I've lost
Which is
control
awesome.
of our own show many a time. It just is what it is. But that's our intro. And
Yes,
damn it,
you're welcome.
we're sticking to it. Swear. We apologize. We really are trying to actively improve our language.
Sorry.
We are aware from your Apple Podcast reviews that while you love the show, some of you reject our very strong language, and we're very much
we get
trying
passionate
to work on it.
and we get heated. We
get very heated.
And what happens when people get angry and upset? They lose their, intelligence. It happens. We'll just blame it on that.
And temper. So it's just what happens when we get...
Blame it on the alcohol.
And we do
blame it on
when we do this podcast. Because
how else would we do
the
it?
only way to deal with human history. You got to drink your way through it.
Here.
Hard to get to.
That's me.
We always do our
Raised
housekeeping. So we are a part of the Big Heads Podcast Network, which is a great collective of podcasts. As always, we're super excited. We can't believe that they have us.
They actually
but they still do.
They have, and they hold on to. We love you guys.
Yeah, and haven't kicked us out yet.
Yeah.
And that is...
Win! Say what you want on Apple Podcasts. We're winning.
We are winning. No, actually, we have 5 stars on Apple. Still, we've only ever had one really bad review. So please go check out Big Heads Podcast Network on social media, everyone. Also go to the website, which we will plug later in the show. If you love the show, however, please, please, please go and give us those 5 stars on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can say whatever you want. It's really not to make us feel good, although we do feel good when they're, we feel amazing.
Hey, 5 stars.
We try to shout out some of the good ones. We really do. And we really appreciate all our listeners and our friends on social media. You guys are great. But it helps us out on the business end. And that's always massively appreciated. And we can't say thank you enough. To that note, we are, and I know that we've promised, but we are going to get our Patreon back up and running after our long hiatus and our really
There's a
intensive
reason.
Romanoff thing. We've had a lot going on. So what we're hoping to do with that is bonus, episodes, kind of like the one we're going to have today, interviews and body counts. We'll be sure to keep you updated via social media. And so make sure to follow us on social media. We've really been trying to get back in the groove, and we've got a lot of interview things coming up. And so what we're hoping to do on the main podcast from now on is our interview series and our really big explorations, like the 10-part Romanoff series, which still isn't done. And that's kind of what we want to start. There's a reason.
There's a reason.
We're not going to get into it. There's a reason, but that's kind of what we want to start doing with the main podcast. And kind of what we're going to do today is what we're hoping to start bringing to Patreon. Yes. Things like Mount St. Helens explorations. We're starting to feel that those maybe need to be more of a Patreon thing than necessarily our big sweeping interview series and our big sweeping historical series. So know that we are still on our Romanoff break. We do hope to get back to it. And you know who's available for that, Bethany? Paul. And I really think we should have, Paul Flowers. I think that we should probably have him on our Peter episode. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And of course,
Professor, can you not see me? I turned on my video chat. Of course, nobody else can. But can you see me? I've got my hand raised. Professor,
well, I am here to answer questions.
Professor, there's a never been heard of recording that we did. And you claimed it didn't get posted as like on our regular thing because we were very intoxicated by this point.
Nor will it be posted because we were very, very drunk. No.
But I thought I had some good questions.
You did, but we sounded like drunk psychos, and that's not ever going
to. Darn it. Well, hey, guess what, Patreon?
And I mean,
there is some great conversation. Hey, it couldn't have been that bad, really. It really was that bad.
It was really that bad.
Well, shoot, I felt like I learned something after that. I was like, I'm so glad I talked that through. Well, I understand stuff now. It might have been offensive, or maybe it was, but
it was highly offensive, and that is why we will never ever put it on anything.
Well, okay.
Offensive accidentally. Beyond our normal scope of offensive, enough for even me to go, oh, that can never see the light of day.
Oh, I felt like, honestly, I do remember stuff like in a constructive way, not in a
well, that's because we were also in a brownout state. We've gotten up very early to record with Warren, and we've been drinking from like freaking 7 a.m. Okay. And, yeah.
Well, I gave us 30 minutes. I was trying to give us 30 minutes, Jessica.
Let's be honest. 7 a.m. It didn't need to be done, but that's where we're at. So we're taking our Romanoff break, and we're also still working our way through our interview series with Dr. Warren Doctor. As we all know, he is admittedly a hashtag big deal.
He couldn't record with us today because he was going to be with other people in his community.
Oh, I'm sure he's in some kind of fancy pants dinner BS. I mean, he does have a day job that is rather a big deal.
I'm sorry. We love you.
We're trying to work around Warren's work schedule, and
it's all about him. Okay.
So we're always in kind of this stalemate, trying to finish with Warren, and then after that we have a plan to move on. Yes,
right, Nancy
Wake with French History Podcast. If you don't listen to French History Podcasts, you are missing
What's
out.
wrong with
Barry Gerard is absolutely amazing. What's wrong with you? Go get some great history podcasts. That is not the ass clownery that we try to bring you week to week. and why he wants to be on this show, beyond
I don't
me, but
know.
I'm super
I never
excited
really
that he does.
understand why cool people want to like. I'm like I put on Twitter the other day. Like, look, I think it's awesome that even Jessica has been my friend this long. And then now other people want to be like, yeah, hey, can we talk to you? Why?
And we're gonna eventually
Sure,
get
do you
to
mean
talking about
us?
Krista, and we're gonna talk about prohibition. And I think it's so weird that just when we want to talk about that, prohibition is really making its way into the news, and there's been a rediscussion in history. So, I mean, that's
History
coming up.
doesn't repeat itself,
I mean,
but it sure does wrong.
so again, today's episode, much like our Hitler's drug use episode,
Yes, it's a filler.
I'm not
Sorry.
sure. Yeah, pretty much filler, and
We're
we
filler.
apologize.
We love you. Please love us back.
and once we get all our interview stuff set up, we'll stop having these filler episodes, and it's maybe not got as much practical application or correlation to current events as, say, maybe the Romanov episodes,
Sorry.
or maybe Guadalajara highlighting the Atmos energy problem in South Texas. That's what we try to do right now. We're just trying to get stuff out while we schedule with everybody, and it's just the way it is.
Yay, 2020. Oh yeah.
It is what it is. We like the correlation aspect to be present, but we are also in the middle of a ton of different interview projects. So this is where we're at. And we're,
okay. We're kind of
and we can't do anything about it because I was the idiot almost a year ago now, officially a year ago now, that said, oh no, we can do this podcast, weekly. What an idiot I was.
Well, again, it could help if I didn't have a job myself, but I do. Not just a job, but a full-time management, high-end job.
If you were not a high-end jobber, it'd be different.
Let me just throw away all that money.
Which, thank God, my husband's an engineer, because otherwise this motherfucker I swear. Otherwise, this podcast would never be done. We'd never have done it.
And I go, I get to just show up. Sorry you have to do the work, but I'm here for you, Jess, to make you laugh. I'm here for you, bitch. I literally texted you. Oh, sorry, curse. I literally texted, said, hey, what are we going to do? I only have these days off, and he's not available. What are we going to do? And you're like, I threw out my back. I'm on the floor. I'm typing up a outline for our podcast filler. I said, done. Tell me when I need to open
and for once today, guys,
I need to start drinking.
I really apologize, but I have done no research today. We are living purely in my memory of an event.
Your memory does include actual sources, though, because I know, because I've experienced several of these memories.
No, absolutely. Of course it does. So, otherwise, what use is it?
So you can't call it an unresearched or
I'm not like...
You're still there.
I'm not... In my head, I'm not citing a source. I don't have archival. I haven't read this from secondary or primary sources.
Get it? You're smart. Blah, blah.
But you know how much it bothers me. It really bothers me that when the DMs come in, I can't go exactly where I got this from. Right? Yeah. I know the story, I've read it, I know the primary and secondary sources, but we're going off of my memory today. So we're doing things even more different.
That makes me excited. These are, here's the thing is we've done so many things that never have gotten aired, like we talked about earlier. And I think because I feel like I get the trueness of whatever I'm supposed to be learning. Yes, it's probably not airable. However, I learned some stuff. Hey, you see what I did there?
Mm-hmm.
The right word without having to say curse. So
I did. I got it. I appreciated it.
Realness. It's the realness of it, Jessica, and I'm here for it. I haven't even read this outline. I don't even know who we're talking about. What's his name?
Oh, we're going to get to that. But
Okay,
I
cool.
want to stop
Teach
for a
me.
minute and say once
Teach
more
me.
that I will help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only
Please.
hope.
Help.
That maybe today doesn't have necessarily the most practical application or correlation to current events. It is simply that maybe there are no new ideas, right? Like no new worlds to conquer, if you will. Alexander versus Jesus wept. It really is amazing, though, that we sentient primates achieve the things that we do achieve in life, right? And I think personally, trying to pin down history is impossible. Who was there first? What was there first? What do we know came first? Except for maybe something like the moon landing. You know, that is concrete and was televised.
Right.
So,
however, people have been trying to disprove that bullshit. So here we are.
So here we are again. Exactly.
Here we are.
Point. And that in and of itself was a testament to almost the indomitability of human nature.
Right.
And the moon landing certainly captured human imagination. But before the moon, Bethany, there was Mount Everest.
Okay.
And I would argue that it still fascinates and it still stands to kind of this testament of mankind's strength and endurance. And every year it draws those that would seek the ultimate challenge. Exactly.
Okay, I'm gonna go climb Mount Everest. Oh, it's just like that movie. Oh my God, this is gonna be super dumb, and this is gonna show my dumbness. But the Mr. Deeds, where his so-called uncle or some weird bloodline was like, "Hey,
Mr. Deeds
with Adam Sandler."
Nope.
What?
Never saw that.
Well, long story short, he discovers a long lost person that he's related to. He climbed Mount Everest, and guess what? He got to the top, froze to death, and he died.
What? How very applicable to what we're going to talk about today.
Exactly. Okay, so I'm just saying there's a whole story. What happens after the fucking millionaire climbs Mount Everest like an idiot and freezes to death at the fucking top. So, sorry.
But
I mean, at the stupid top.
So many swears.
Sorry.
We apologize.
Sorry.
Pooh,
like bunnies.
It is a test to the indomitability of the human spirit. That's kind of what we do. So let's chat for a moment about Mount Everest. Now, it's the tallest mountain in the world above sea level. Now, I'm not having that Hawaiian volcano discussion bullshit that I know a lot of you are. So I swear that a lot of you are going to come at me with about above sea level. Send it to my DMs. There is a taller point.
It's different because we're talking about a mountain, not a volcano.
Taller point in the world if you count the entire mountain. Also, what exists underneath the seabed. I'm not going to count that, and everybody from whatever can blow me because the tallest mountain in the world.
Don't tip me with a good time. Hey.
Hey. Sorry. Right? Yeah, but it's not a fun blow. It's like makes me want to go crazy in my emails and my DMs. So the tallest mountain in the world, if we take it above sea level and above sea level only, is a rockin' 29,035 feet high. So you've got Nepal to the south, China and Tibet to the north. It's over 60 million some odd years old, and the summit of Everest is covered by snow all year long. You get it. It is Mount effing Everest, man. It is the king. It is what it is.
Don't fuck with Everest. I mean, sorry. Darn it.
Technically, don't F with K2, but
right. Sorry. That's
plenty of people have F'd with Everest, but it is the tallest. It just happens to be more
Everest
climbable.
takes it for its business.
For its height, it takes it.
Yeah.
But for our purposes, the most important thing is a whole hell of a lot of people have died trying to summit this bad boy.
I know.
Which, I mean, I guess on Earth is certainly a pinnacle of achievement. Don't get me wrong.
Just, you
It's
know,
an amazing accomplishment.
cool.
It is.
Oh, cool. You climbed a mountain, didn't die. Good for you.
Like,
You knew you could die, and you still did it. Okay.
I mean, people train for this BS for years. They devote their
It's crazy.
lives to summiting Everest. And I just think that, like, maybe curing cancer deserves more,
like,
more
can we
effort
focus on
than
that?
mountain climbing.
You're gonna
But
train
if
for
you're,
the Mount Everest. Okay.
but
Why
here's the
can't
thing, though.
really?
If you're gonna, like, yeah, I have to climb Everest, you most likely aren't capable of curing cancer despite your massive work ethic. I'm just saying, if what you want to do with that kind of work ethic is climb a mountain, you're probably not a cancer curer. And I don't mean that in a hateful way. And
We love you. We love you, but
it doesn't diminish your achievement. It is a hell of achievement. But, like, there's, to me, other shit that should be, excuse me, other things that should be maybe done first. So there we are with that. But really quickly, Bethany, this isn't what our story is about today, but I for posterity's sake, I'm going to give it anyway. Body count of Mount Everest.
Okay. I honestly didn't think there was one.
306 people from 1924 to December of 2019.
Oh my God.
I believe is the most correct data, like the most recent data.
Wait, 1924 to 2019, which is just a month ago. We have
Correct.
306. Okay, that's not, it's not a bad number, but that's still 300 people.
Yeah, but still, how many people try to climb Mount Everest? It's
still
more
a thing?
vast number. Yeah.
It
hasn't become less conquerable. The damn thing grows a certain amount every year. I mean, like, it just is what it is. It's, yeah. I mean, that's a big number. I mean, considering how many people have successfully summited the mountain, that's a big body count.
Well, of course. I mean, I didn't know that. I really did not know that people were like, because I would be like, oh, hey, that person that I look up to just went up to Mount Everest and he died. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to train and I'm going to do the exact same thing. And
it's
I know
super dangerous.
But why? Okay, never mind. We won't get into
humanity,
that.
and we'll talk about it at the end. We'll talk about it at the end.
All right, cool. I'll keep my tongue.
But we're not here today to run down all of those bodies. I mean, because, and I'll get to the end of why we didn't do that. So we're here to talk about the mountain's first big deal victim to summit, or to attempt to. Now, everyone knows Sir Edmund Hillary of New Zealand and the Nepalese Sherpa Tenzing Norgay were the first to summit Everest on May 29th of 1953. I assume they did.
No.
Bethany, it was a whole Rolex commercial in the 80s, okay?
I was born in 88. I was 2 by the time the 90s started. Jesus, give me a break. I don't know. Hey, you know what, though? If you showed me, I might remember. Remember, I'm a visual learner.
You would absolutely remember this.
Show me later.
It's a me generation versus we generation Rolex commercial, which is a study in and of itself that I really enjoy. But it's neither here nor there. It's not important now. By summit, I mean to make it to the top and back down again, right?
Okay.
But what if somebody made it to the top and didn't make it back down first?
Oh. So you could get all the way there, but not come back down, which is the whole point.
That's right. Which we're going to get there, but that's what we're going to talk about specifically today.
Okay.
That is going to be our body count. The man that may have, in fact, made it to the top first definitely didn't make it back down. And the consequential search for his body and any evidence he may have left along the way. Our body count today, just one, well, technically two, also his climbing partner, but we're more interested in George Mallory because he was the body that was found. Okay. But what's interesting and truly interesting about this body count is the journey to finding George Mallory and the answer to a question that's quite frankly been the subject of like some very intense speculation for a century or so. Everybody and their dog has been and had been looking for George Mallory. And what we're going to talk about more even than Mallory today is this group of dogged explorers that answer some very important questions for the ages. So this is kind of a sidetrack and something different for us. Mountaineer George Mallory and his partner Andrew Irvin were last sighted on June 8th of 1924, attempting to become the first two men to reach the summit of Everest. Now, did they in fact do so? And if they didn't or did, where are the bodies? Now, lucky for us, an American named Eric Simonson puts together a Mallory and Irvin research expedition along with 5 other extremely experienced mountaineers, and they set off for Everest, determined to find one or both of our missing climbers. But where the F do you even begin, right?
I mean, right? It's a mountain.
You know what route they took, you know where they made camp before they attempted to summit, sure, but it's still
We're talking about a whole mountain. Yeah, and
it's massive.
You could get lost, you could get dehydrated and start wandering a different direction.
Well,
like
exactly. At least
it's a lot.
But
right.
They had a clue to begin with. Now, in 1975, a Chinese climber by the name of Wang Hongbao, I think is how you say it, stumbles across a body that he deems as an English dead. Well, and again, this is like Otzi man type shit, okay? Like bodies are going to be hella well preserved because it's cold AF where they're at this point.
What do you mean, Otzi? Otzi man?
Do you remember the frozen man they found in the Alps that was like a Neolithic man? Like, my point being, in such frozen climates, something's going to be very well preserved, right?
Oh, and you're going to find it eventually. You're just going to have to let it kind of...
You just kind of have to stumble upon it. And this gentleman happened to stumble upon it. It's very well preserved, but he's in the midst of his own climb, right? Like his own life is very much in danger. So he says, English dead. He doesn't really have time to mess with it. It's Everest. It comes with the territory, right?
Right. Like, you know what you're getting into if you're going to climb this. You're like, I'm training to climb Mount Everest. Okay. Are you training for your indefinite death? I'm just saying.
You can't really stop for every body you find because there are a lot all over this mountain. A lot of people are claimed found, right?
Yes, right,
so
exactly.
Wang does report that he found this person to his climbing partner right before Wang himself is swept away by an avalanche.
You mean Wang? Sorry.
Wang. You're right.
You kept saying Wang. Sorry.
I'm bad
Something
at pronunciation
about
today.
Wang got an avalanche. I'm sorry. You said Wang and my mind went to the wrong way and So you kept saying Wang, and I'm like, no,
well,
Wong.
we
I think
do
it's
like
Wong.
Wangs, but
I know.
Wong Hung Bao. Wong
Okay.
Hung Bao reports
Something about
his
he had an
find,
avalanche, right?
Like, and
Sorry.
right, he reports
Okay.
his find to his climbing partner. Avalanche, unfortunately, sweeps Wong away before more information is garnered. So he dies. So now
fun.
he's
I mean,
dead.
fun, but fun,
No,
cool,
but
awesome.
again, fucking Everest. Oh, sorry, swear.
Oh,
Everest.
gosh
What do you
darn
expect?
Everest.
You know?
Gosh darn it.
So now he's dead, and the precise location for said, quote, English dead isn't exactly fixed. But
Okay.
they know where Wong met with his accident and where he had been climbing when he was able to briefly report his find, right?
Right.
So,
yes. Well, that's going to have to at least ding. He did use some sort of communication, so they have to know at least an area.
like at least his,
right?
He got to his climbing partner enough to be like, this is where I saw this. And so Simonson's team has a hunch that this may be Mallory in 75 that they heard about, and so they have kind of a place to start. Now realize Simonson's team is starting out in 1999, so this is even old information to them from 75 to try to find this body. But
hold on, I want to make sure we went from 75 to 1999.
The last report of English dead on this particular attempt to summit on this. Does that make sense? There are ways to
he disappeared in 75,
Everest.
And then there was some guy that went up, and this was during the 1999. Or no? Yes?
Simonson's team goes seeking in 99, right? But Wong Hung Bao was climbing in 75 and reported a random English dead.
But later. Didn't do it right away.
Later. So the point is, Simonson's team is reporting, is going to go off of this, right? It's a place to start. They think it might be Mallory. So literally, there's a huge space to cover because, again, this is
a mountain.
Everest.
Not just a mountain. It's not just a mountain. It's Mount Everest.
Exactly.
I mean, do we have to explain? Shoot,
I don't think
to?
we do.
Okay,
I don't
good.
think we do. I think
good.
people really get it.
It's huge.
But based on where Wong met where he had climbed above, where he met his demise, what he had seen, it's still the space of approximately 12 soccer, football, whatever pitches. That's a huge space on Mount Everest, right?
Okay.
So this is a huge space on the side of one of the most unforgiving places on Earth, which is saying something, because I mean, Mother Earth can be a real bee, but is she a bigger bee than what she is on Everest?
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh. It's just my only way of being uncomfortable.
Well, it is uncomfortable.
It's sorry.
It is what it is.
For some reason, she hates the huge giant zit called Mount Everest on her face. And she's like,
I think she hates all the zits. I think she hates all the zits called humans that are on her face, as a matter of fact. But
why are you climbing up there? You don't belong.
Exactly. But Simonson and his team were pretty undaunted, and they really felt like, based on the route that Mallory took up the mountain, this might be their guy, right? So they start painstakingly combing this gigantic area. Now, not just the size is an issue, but the terrace that they are searching on is at like a mad angle, very tilted, very dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy that was glimpsed could be Mallory, because remember, they aren't even sure who Wong saw.
Right.
And he was swept off of the place where these guys are literally searching. So that's how, like, into mountaineering the guys that are doing this are.
Right.
Oh, and have I mentioned they're at approximately 26,000 feet? So they do have to have oxygen.
No big deal.
No big deal.
It's just 26,000. I've done more.
That's it. So if you lose,
Sorry.
let's put it in perspective. If you lose your balance for even a second, you're so effed because you're going in an uncontrolled slide down a 30-degree slope at 26,000 feet off a 7,000-foot drop directly into a glacier.
With snow that's going to literally propel you even further down.
Correct. If you
it's
fall
just going to
where
carry it
they're
there.
searching, you're a dead man. No
Sorry.
ifs or buts about it. And I don't love those odds, but these guys were like that into answering one of history's mysteries. So I have to give them mad props, though, right? Because, like,
slow clap for the people that said, F it. I'm going to try for this. F science, F math. I'm going to make it up and down. Watch me. Okay, I'll watch you freeze.
And
I'll watch you roll.
Watch them work, baby.
Okay.
They do gets it done. Still.
Yeah.
So May 1st, 1999, one of Simonson's party, Conrad Anker, against all odds, and this is truly amazing, spots a corpse.
Oh.
Now, I know we've had this discussion before on our show, but what is the technical amount of time or historical discovery that needs to pass before one gets super excited when they see a corpse, right?
Right. Well,
I think we've achieved it before.
It depends on the situation, because either A, you find it and it's clearly a murder, or you're like, oh, hey, you knew the risks. I finally found your body.
Or an archaeological
or fine, yes. It's not like, oh, hey, look, bones, history.
Yeah,
but we're not talking about bones here. When we're talking about corpse, we're talking about frozen bodies. Am I right or wrong?
Perfectly frozen corpse, definitely.
Right. So it's like, I'm going to stick by it. It's going to depend on the situation. If we find it like, oh my God, that's a murder.
But
holy
it's
crap,
still a weird thing to say. Oh, they found a corpse and they got super excited.
It's right? Murder by Mother Nature. I can be excited about this.
If you're a detective,
I found it.
If you're a detective and you've been looking for the corpse for a while, I suppose you are a little bit excited that you said. It's just really interesting to me in history. At what point do we define excitement by finding a corpse? But then again, this is 1999 and this is a 1924 corpse. So,
I think it can vary. I really do. What's the circumstances? And maybe I can be excited because it is history.
It is what it is.
I mean, this is history. This is a historical body, like you said.
And it's going to have some answers for us, for sure. So still the party is excited because they find this snowy white corpse sticking out of the ice. So they all cautiously climb over, gather around. And here's the thing. They have to start chipping the body out because, again, this is 20,000 feet or 26,000 feet up Mount frickin' Everest. So, even if you find a body, you don't even know if it's Mallory. So they have to exhume this corpse because there are corpses all over Everest, right? So they have to exhume this corpse
my God,
in this incredibly dangerous spot.
I'm like, right. I'm not throwing it because I'm grossed out. I'm throwing up because I'm that overwhelmed.
That
makes sense.
That is commitment to a cause.
Damn.
If I'm
what kind of scientist are you right now?
Exactly. If I'm them, I'm willing to say hey, just let Hillary and Norgay have it uncontested. It's not worth dying over. It's not
worth
dying
not me.
over.
Hey, that's you, not me.
But
can I put my name at the end of the paper?
Oh, you wish you could, but not these mountaineer archaeologists, explorers. Oh, no, no.
No,
They
of course
will
not.
have their answers. Let me put it that way.
Determination.
I, I don't have that much determination in my entire body, but they
No.
did.
They did,
So,
and this is why we have this story.
that's exactly right. So, of course, they are digging. They are documenting like a mother because no one freaking knows what happened to Mallory at this point. So they find that corpse has suffered a break to both the tibia and the fibula in the right leg. The right elbow is dislocated severely, and the entire right side of the body is pretty damaged, as the climbing rope, from what they can immediately see, has wrapped itself pretty brutally around the ribcage.
Oh, no. Okay.
But more than identifying injuries, they identify the body, because inside the clothing, and this is a practice, people used to write their name inside clothing. Guess who it is? They find
Mallory! George Mallory!
find actual
died on
George
Everest.
Mallory
Sorry.
randomly on the side of Mount Everest. So, I mean, like, it's terrible. Like I said, that you're finding a corpse and you're excited, but if you're these guys, you're like, shut the front door. Like, we just did it. We did it.
It's totally him. It's totally him.
It's George Mallory. So, of course, like, they can't believe it at first. They pump some oxygen, because to dig, they've set aside their oxygen tanks, right? So, they pump some oxygen back into themselves and are like, holy shit balls, it's actually George Mallory, the man, the mystery. We have him.
The man, the one, the only, George Mallory. Yay!
Yes. Now, they have not founding. No, go ahead.
It's funny because it's like, you're right. And that's why I stand by situation. They were talking about a guy that clearly he's dead. But because of the fact that they haven't been able to find him because of the circumstances, again, situation. What makes it okay
to get super excited about finding the body?
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, guess what? He was supposed to be here at what? He disappeared in when?
24. June 8th. 24.
And here we are in the 70s, or no, then we're in the 90s
now,
almost 2000s, and here all of a sudden we don't even have just bones. You have an actual outline and a preservation.
Oh no, they got the whole sweet thing, baby. We're getting into that.
The whole enchilada. We're not talking about bones. We're talking about actually preserved bodies,
like the man. So
the man.
They do not find Irvin, but they do have Mallory. Now,
right? Okay.
Can we answer the essential question? Did Mallory and Irvin make it to the summit? As in, did they die on the way up, or did they die on the way down? Which is a pretty crucial question. So here is what Simonson's team actually does find. And also kind of what they didn't find.
Okay.
They did not find Mallory's camera, which would have been nice, as experts at Kodak were pretty confident, despite age and damage, just because of where it was, though, that they would still be able to develop the pictures. Okay. No camera, however, was found in the pouch around his neck, just some like meat lozenges. So, like,
what you're saying?
Like beef bouillon, you know, you can carry up the mountain to eat on your puny fire that you can't make, like just pretty much anything, right?
Which means something actually happened, because if he had survived, he would have he wouldn't have anything in his pouch.
We know something happened. He's a dead man, and we're going to get to that because they can do that. But the interesting thing is, if we could find that camera, but we don't have the camera at this point. Right. So it just is what it is. But they did get some other things. They find some things in his pockets. So they find a brass altimeter, which is an instrument used to measure basically, what am I thinking?
I don't know.
What am I thinking? Not height, but elevation. There we go. Which is basically something, because we don't have that Rolex watch that Sir Edmund Hillary has that has a built-in altimeter. So he's got an altimeter which is going to measure their elevation at a given point. He has a pocket knife, a monogram handkerchief, because apparently you can't fucking climb Everest without one. Sorry, curse.
Oh,
I mean,
sorry.
Don't cling to your camera, sir, but by all means, hold on to your handkerchief.
To hanky. Oh, I was going to call it a hanky, because that's what it is.
But most important, and this is kind of what gives us some of our clues, they find a pair of undamaged sun goggles in one of his inside pockets. Now,
I don't know why this is important.
We're going to get to that. Now, the goggles, to these experienced mountaineers, are deemed to be a pretty important clue as to maybe what went down with Mallory and Irvin that day. Because like a couple days before Mallory's final attempt on the summit, so, they've made camp. He's got all his little climbing partners. Mallory's second climbing partner, Edward Norton, it wasn't just Mallory and Irvin, they were the ones that made it through to the final descent, because this is 1924. And I know 53, when Norgay and Hillary does it, that seems like a little, but this is 24. We're way less technologically advanced. You know what I'm saying? Like, these guys are doing it real deal. But Edward Norton, which was a climbing partner, suffered serious snow blindness, having neglected to wear his own protective sun goggles, right?
Okay. Okay. Well, it makes sense.
So,
all right.
Now, I mean, that's a pretty concrete lesson if you think of it in these terms. That's a concrete lesson to Mallory himself. He would have instantly learned about, like, climbing in daylight, right? That you have to wear those sunglasses or those sun goggles, because if you're gonna summit, you have to have them. Otherwise, snow blindness is gonna keep you from leaving camp and summiting, right?
Right. Exactly. Yes.
So he's a guy that wants to summit Everest. He just watched Norton lose that chance because he wasn't wearing goggles. So we can most likely conclude that if it's daylight, Mallory's wearing the goggles.
Right.
So what does those goggles being in his pocket suggest? It
was not daylight.
Correct. It suggests, and this is heavy speculation here, and it's also how I remember it. So I forgive. I didn't do a lot of research this week. This is my memory of research, that the two might have completed the push for the summit that day in full sunlight, and were in fact making their descent in twilight, which means Mallory pops the sun goggles off and puts them into his pocket.
Well, I mean, okay. All right.
But do you not agree that's maybe a logic? You're gonna want to summit in daylight, and then you should know your path already, right? So you're gonna come the same path down, and you can attempt to climb it later in the day when you don't need sun goggles. You've taken them off. Snow blindness is no longer a threat. You slip them into your pocket. Now
he's probably like, "Oh, hey, I recognize that. I know where I'm going."
Correct.
Let's do this. No, that it makes sense. Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
So there's also an envelope found in Mallory's pockets on his body, covered with all sorts of numbers. Now, these are important numbers, as they are pressure readings of oxygen bottles that the two were carrying. Now, it's long been speculated that Mallory and Irvin did not have enough oxygen to actually summit Everest in the first place, right? So case closed.
Okay.
But if Mallory's calculations found on the body are accurate, Mallory and Irvin would have in reality been carrying roughly 5 or 6 canisters.
Okay.
Which is more than enough to summit Everest.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. But
Okay.
did they have that many, or no?
Well, I mean, there could have been a mistake in his calculations and everything, but he's not an idiot. He's a mountaineer. He does this for like this his whole job. I have a feeling that he can correctly calculate oxygen levels that they have on. Why else would he have attempted to summit? He knows
Right.
that,
I mean,
without it,
and he was keeping track of it too. So
not in 24.
Yeah.
You know. So if we take that into account, and a lot of people want to say there's no way he could have done it, he just didn't have enough oxygen, but now we have this proof of these calculations that in fact they had enough to summit, at very least. Maybe not enough to get back, but enough to summit. So
okay.
Something else is also missing that the searchers expected to find on Mallory's body, essentially thinking, you know, I mean, he didn't summit, but those oxygen numbers are sure interesting, right? Like,
Right.
there should have been something else on his body, and they're going into this thinking he didn't have the oxygen to actually have summited. But now they're looking at this and going, well, these figures say he does. Let's look for this other thing we want to find and see if this is maybe further proof.
Right.
What they did not find was a photograph of Mallory's wife, which he had loudly and proudly vowed to leave on the summit of Everest, and like clung to the entire time, like crazy times, intending to do, and shouted to everybody at every station on the way up that he was going to do this. Right now, anything could have happened. It's a photo and it's Everest. However, his wallet and every other paper on his person was perfectly intact, but there was no picture. And they know when he left that day, he had specifically made a big deal about having the picture to leave on the summit, right?
Okay.
But they do not find it, and everything else is perfectly preserved. So
That's
that's
weird.
interesting. So coupled with the oxygen figures that they probably did have enough, that's like pretty interesting, right?
Yeah.
It's plausible, highly plausible.
That's how I feel right now.
Yeah,
like I'm like, I don't. You know what? There's just so much weirdness going on with this right now. How am I supposed to?
It's possible.
Well, yes, that's weird because
maybe
it's like,
even probable at this point.
But how do you prove it?
You don't. So, but here is
exactly.
What Simon. We're gonna get to all that. So Simon's team proposes a theory as to what they think happened based on their climbing experience, and let me tell you, it's extensive. What they think may have happened if he didn't summit. Let's kind of run through it. So they think it's late in the evening of June 8th, 1924, long after twilight. But Mallory and Irvin, for whatever reason, are still really, really high up on the mountain.
Okay.
Now, that can be proof that they summited. That can be proof that they almost but did not achieve. We don't know. That's kind of, the B of it. So, regardless, though, they were very, very high up and trying to descend in twilight. So whatever they were doing took a significant amount of time. Now, the research team thinks they must be exhausted. Well, duh.
Yeah.
Attempt
Hello.
Everest. And they're probably, despite having enough to maybe get to the top, by now experiencing failing oxygen supplies. Because let's remember, this is 1924. They're not climbing with like North Face and Patagonia gear. This is like, you know,
I don't even know what that is, but it sounds.
One shit. Like
it sounds important.
it is what it is. So
Yeah.
they're getting pretty desperate probably
Well,
at
yeah.
this point to try to get down to some kind of camp. So desperate people aren't always super cautious. So
No.
they reach this notoriously dangerous what all the Everest Climbers Club, I guess, is pretty familiar with. It's called the Yellow Band, which is basically marble and phyllite. So super slippery. Like you're aware of marble, but phyllite is kind of like slate, right? It's not a super great like footing to be on. And at that point, one of the two, they speculate, did in fact slip. Again, desperation, they're trying to get down. So one of them slips. They think it was probably most likely Mallory himself.
Okay.
As far as they can guess, because his fall would have been halted by a rope, but the momentum would have slammed him against the outcrop of solid rock, right? So
yes,
at this
and
point,
he was wrapped around too the rope.
With the rope, exactly. So at this point, Simonson's team speculates that this is the point where his ribs were instantly broken.
Yeah.
Because think back at our body discovery, and his elbow was dislocated. Because think, you're trying to hold a rope, you slam into that, dislocates the elbow, you slam into the rock outcrop with the rope, your ribs are broken.
Right.
He's dangling in the void at this point because of the rope. Now, they also speculate that at this point, for whatever reason, the rope snaps. And this is where Mallory actually plunges. And it's dark AF now, too, so that doesn't help.
No.
So he most likely landed on a snow shelf where we see his leg snap, which is what we saw with the what gravity. They saw. Right, exactly. So he's effed with gravity, and that continues him tumbling on down the mountain. And remember, this is where these people we've already talked about, quite an incline because it's Everest.
Yeah, hello.
The entire thing's an incline. So he's still trying to save himself at this point and is trying to dig his fingers into the frozen scree, which I don't know if you know what scree is. It's like the loose pebbles on it's the loose pebbles on the mountain, right? But think about Everest, they're all icy too.
I'm gonna peel back my fingernails. That's how badly I'm gonna hang on.
Yeah. And that's exactly what he did. So he's trying to slow his slide. But at that point, boom, his forehead. I don't know if I mentioned this before. I might not have. Boom, his forehead slams into a jagged rock, and that is where the puncture hole in his head comes from. I'm sorry. I think I forgot to include that in the injuries when they discovered the body.
Yeah, you did.
Sorry. He's also got a puncture hole in his head. So Mallory finally gets a hold into the scree and comes to a stop in his slide where they find the body, but most likely immediately lost consciousness. And let us hope so, because I'm thinking the pain and hypothermia must have just if the pain didn't instantly make him pass out by the time he got a grip to stop it, the adrenaline stops. I'm going to say hypothermia sets in pretty quickly. George Mallory dies. Or this is what is speculated as to what might have happened by Simonson's group. And based on how much these guys have climbed, I think they probably can, reenact pretty well what happened.
Maybe just
maybe just a little bit. So Irvin, it is believed, most likely met with a similar fate, but his body has never been discovered. So they kind of have to guess. Either he had most likely fallen after the rope snap, just momentum wise, also probably had serious injuries, hypothermia, same kind of thing. Probably both of them succumbed to the cold fairly quickly.
I think I'd like to do that. If there's one way to go, fire or ice, Jessica?
Ice, baby.
Ice.
It's like going to sleep, I hear.
Yep.
Always ice.
Ice. Anyway.
Now, as not fun as that body count is, there's still some fun and compelling evidence here that Simonson's team did discover.
You put me in a
Mallory?
Funk, Jess. Sorry.
What?
You put me in a funk there for a second. Okay.
I'm sorry.
He died. He died.
But now who's going to die? That's our show, Bethany.
I know. The way you presented it, usually I'm like, yeah, you should have died. Or, you know what? You died because of this stupid person. So, yeah, I'm angry. But
yeah,
I'm
no,
like,
this was just an accident.
Darn it.
But let's ignore that and go on.
Okay.
Did Mallory and Irvin, in fact, get the jump on old Hillary and Norgay? As in, did they make it to the summit first? Were they the first to, in fact, summit Everest? And I think that Simonson's team, and based on who they are and how they're looking at it, I think there's a case that maybe they did. And no one can answer with certainty unless that camera's found and if the film is salvageable, I mean, no one can ever answer it conclusively. But I thought this quote from Mallory's son, John, was very interesting. And here's the quote. To me, he said, the only way you achieve a summit is to come back alive. The job is only half done if you don't get down again.
Wow.
And maybe he's right. And here's where we do kind of bring it back around a little bit today, and it's a short one. But I think it speaks to bigger unknowns in human history, that quote in and of itself. Yeah. Everest is supposed to be this ultimate testament to the endurance of human spirit. Yeah.
And strength. I mean, spirit, strength, et cetera, et cetera.
Why we do it. That's why humans do a lot of the BS that we've done throughout human history.
We don't sit there and say, don't do it. We're like, yeah, but you won't.
Why not? Exactly. But I think that it's important to remember that quote from his son, whether we're dickering about who climbed a mountain first or maybe current policy issues, because to achieve and to be testaments to the human race, you have to come back alive. You have to come back complete.
Yes. You have to do
thought it was
and come back down.
Quote.
Yeah,
I think
true.
it can be applied to everything that we do, from policy to space exploration. The job cannot be half done, guys. You have to finish it. And so that's going to be our only correlation to present events today. Sorry, we didn't really think it out.
It's okay, Jessica. You know what? That it's not just. It's what. Don't just say it. Do it. And if you do it, then do it how you say it.
Don't write a check your ass can't cash. Period.
Period.
Period. Sorry. Square. So that's it. It was kind of a weird one today. Here's the thing, though. I thought that the body count of Everest was a bit boring.
Oh, really?
Not boring, but it's very, very technical and not necessarily super historical, right? But I thought, hey, we'll do George Mallory because it's got a little bit of everything, the technical, but also historical. It's of historical importance. Who summited Everest first? Yes. And not a lot of people know that story.
Well, which was hard because of the fact of he said, I'm going at this time, and then disappeared. And then in 1924, in 1999, a very long time, in my opinion. Later, his body is discovered.
But
Yeah.
high five to those guys for like doing it. My God, that is some commitment right there to archaeological and exploration. I mean, excellence. Because
Yes.
where they're looking specifically is in such a dangerous place. I just think it's a really, really interesting story. And it doesn't have much to do with correlation to current events, except for that quote by his son. And I think that that's something that we should think about in our everyday lives.
Well,
As
again,
societies, you've achieved nothing unless you come back down the mountain.
Okay, can I say I agree, and it is definitely something to think about in an overall like a sense of things. So
I don't know. It was fun. It was weird.
I learned
This is the
something.
kind of
I
thing
like
where
it. It doesn't matter. I learned something, Jessica. I already knew I was going to climb Mount Everest, and I always
now
wanted
you
to try to
know
do
who
it.
George Mallory is. There you
Way to go,
go.
Giorgio.
So basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to kind of slowly leave these kind of things that are quick and are fun. We want to start leaving these on our Patreon, and I know that's what everybody got into when they got into this podcast. And we kind of want to start leaving these on our Patreon for everybody. And we want to start doing our longer series and our interview series, which is kind of where we're transitioning, but we don't want it to get too weird too fast. So we're trying to get some fun filler in here. We hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like keep journeying simultaneously with us through Dr. Wharton Doctor's book, Churchill and the Islamic World. Part 3 is coming at you guys Monday. And I think this will probably go Monday. We'll see.
We don't know. We just run this place. No, we don't. It's our.
It got out It got out way too late on Saturday to put it in this Monday.
I know, but that's the only thing we could do because of weird.
It's the only thing we can do, and we want to get it done. So that's kind of where we're at now. After we finished Warren's interview series, Doctor's interview series, we're really excited to jump into Nancy Wake with another special guest. And the truth is, we have a lot of special guests that we have coming at you this year. We're kind of overrun. We're overrun and we don't know what to do. And so
enjoy our ADHD minds. You're welcome.
Enjoy our ADHD minds, and we're gonna have to start doing these fun little body counts on Patreon.
Because why not? Why not?
Why not? So go listen to us wherever it is you do podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is, Stitcher. Check out the website at bodycounthistorypod.com. You can also go and find us and our site specifically on bigheadsmedia.com. And you find all of our episodes and everything there as well. And you can follow our network at Big Heads Media on Twitter. Now you can follow the show at Body Count Pod on both Twitter and Instagram. Bethany, where do people find you?
Well, mine's more complicated both than yours and body counts, but it's two different things. I didn't get to understanding how to do that. So Bethany Skelton 5, the number 5 on Twitter, and then Bethany RN as in Nancy, who we've talked about as a guest, 24. Bethany RN24 on Instagram. So I post a lot of things about my kids. So sorry in advance if you don't.
You can find me at Jessica B Manor on Twitter and Instagram. You'll find very little to do with me on Instagram. We're going to try to get back into posting more on Instagram.
We're gonna do it.
The podcast.
2020.
It's pretty intermittent. We're trying to get back into it. We've had a lot of personal things going on, but we're getting back at it. You can always find me on Twitter, though. I mean, you guys know that's where you can find me. You can also direct all your complaints if you don't have a Twitter to Jessica Manor at bodycountpod.com. I will eat your face. So that is everything we have to do with social. I think it was a fun episode. Are we done?
We are. We sure are.
We
Totally.
sure are.
Toads McGoat.
Toads McGoat. So, everybody, we will see you next week, and we love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.